Good evening, everyone, and happy Tuesday, and welcome to another edition of USA Hockey's Officiating Zoomcast series, and happy 2023 to all of you out there watching. My name is Scott Zelkin. I'm the manager of USA Hockey's Officiating Development Program, and I'll be your host tonight as we bring the fun to the game of hockey. Our topic today is not really nuts and boltsy-ish. It's more kind of exactly what the title is, Officiating Fundamentals. We're going to talk about fun. Everything there is to know about fun in hockey is our topic tonight. And to do that and help us with this subject, our special guest this evening is Heather Mannix. Heather is the manager of officiating, or I'm sorry, is the manager of education and player development for USA Hockey, and is an expert on fun in youth sports, and want to welcome Heather. So Heather, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
As we do with all of our Zoomcasts, the first thing we're going to do, and really what the whole purpose of this is, we're going to talk about fun. We're going to talk about what drives players, what drives involvement in youth sports and things like that. And the first thing we're going to do is throw up a poll to kind of gauge the audience, see where you're at, give you some things to think about before we talk about Heather's background, some of the things Heather's discovered, and then what we're bringing to USA Hockey and how that actually relates to kind of our little world, which is officiating. So I've got a 3-question poll that we're going to launch here real quick right now, and we'll give you all a minute or two to throw up some answers and just kind of see where you're at. So according to studies, the first question, according to studies, what's the number one reason kids are playing sports? Is it to win? Is it for fun? Is it exercise? Or is it somebody's making them? Mom and dad said, get out of the house and, go play sports. Number 2 is fun and development are mutually exclusive. Can you have fun without development? Are they separate? Are they together? And then finally, really more specific to you guys as an audience, why do you officiate? What is the reason you choosing to officiate? Is it the personal challenge? Is it giving back to the game? Is it camaraderie? Is it money? I remember way back when I had an official when I was a 12-year-old official. One of the guys I was working with told me there were 15 reasons he was working the game, and they all had George Washington on the cover. So that's when $15 was a lot of money for a hockey game. So I'm old. So there's only a couple of you that have yet to answer. So we'll give you about 15, 20 more seconds to throw up your answers, and then we'll share what the results are, and then we'll begin talking. Okay. We'll end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so let's throw up our results. You guys should all be able to see on your screen the results of the poll. And according to studies, and we'll let Heather talk about this in a second, it's one of the main reasons kids are playing sports. Well, it's for fun. Nobody wants to exercise. One of you thinks it's because somebody's making them play, which is good. So fun is the leader on this one. And then fun and development are mutually exclusive. The majority of you say that's false, say that you can have fun and develop at the same time. And then finally, you know what? This was a multiple choice. You could choose as many as you wanted to. Quite a few of you are doing it are officiating for the personal challenge. The internal satisfaction of going out and doing a good job. A number of you, more than half of you, enjoy the fact that you're giving back to the game. 30% of you are only doing it for are not only, but are doing it for the camaraderie. And then certainly a handful of you also feel that money is a driver for why you're officiating. And truth be told, when I first started out as a young official, Heather, the only reason I was really doing it was, it was better than bagging groceries at the local grocery store. So to make $3 to $5 or $15 a game was a big deal way back when. But with that kind of sets the table for Fun. Let's talk about fun. I'm gonna share the screen again, and let's talk a little bit, Heather, and I'll throw it to you. You're the manager of education and player development, but we also like to joke that you're also the manager of fun at USA Hockey in terms of fun in youth sports. So tell us a little bit about, where fun began for you, what your experience is, what's your background maybe outside of the game to talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was lucky enough to be a part of a really, really cool research project. And so after I grew up in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. So grew up playing hockey my whole life. Went to George Washington University to get my master's degree in exercise science. And that's where I discovered sport and exercise psychology was an actual field. I absolutely loved psychology, and obviously sports was a passion of mine. And so I was really bummed that it took me until my master's and I had just one class to find that this was an actual field. And I was lucky enough, my professor at the time was Dr. Amanda Visick, and she had an NIH funded grant that looked at operationally defining what makes playing sports fun for kids. And it's kind of a big deal to have an NIH funded grant. Our government doesn't typically fund youth sport research. So the fact that she was able to secure funding from our government was kind of a testament to how important this field, or this one question of what is fun actually was. And so while I was there, we were able to, we published 3 scientific journal articles. We wrote several chapters in youth sports psychology books. And then the Swedish Ice Hockey Federation got a hold of it as well. And so we were able to kind of partner with them and start to look at, what did fun look like for Swedish ice hockey players. And so when I was still working with Amanda, we were in the data collection process over there. And so she is starting to wrap up those findings, and hopefully those will be published soon. But it was really kind of cool to see the cultural differences and similarities surrounding this one simple 3-letter word. And so my background is a little bit different than many that work, some of my colleagues. But I think that's kind of what makes us a strong team, is we all bring a little bit something different to the table. So yes, the Master of Fun have been called. It's that's kind of my background. It's my passion. And I think it's an incredibly important subject for people to hear about, to understand. And the whole purpose of the type of research that Amanda, the way she designed that entire project was, science is not meant to be sitting on a scientific journal article on a shelf and collecting dust. It is, if it's done in a way where we can get that information directly back to the people that helped us generate that data, and that's where you can start to make real change and start to see some progress, hopefully, in creating the best environment for kids in their youth sport experience.
And so when you talk about creating that environment and whatnot, let's talk about maybe something that you discovered, or what is fun? What's talk to us a little bit about some of your findings. The first question we threw up on the poll was kind of leading and set the table, but what is fun?
Yeah, no, it's nothing like starting with a nice little softball, lobbing it out for everybody. But so this is something that we actually didn't need to discover in our study. This is something that had been researched for decades when it comes to the motivation, what drives people towards doing anything, let alone youth sports. And what the research has shown us is that the number one reason that kids cite that they play sports is that it's fun. And that makes perfect sense, right? So, you want to continue to do things that are fun. You tend to procrastinate and put things off that are not fun. But again, it really came down to, having this large body of research that said how important fun was to keeping people participating, keeping kids participating. And then recognizing that there really wasn't a ton of research, or really wasn't any research that operationally defined that word. And so what we found was that, you know when you're having it, you sure as heck know when you're not having it. And that was one thing. And when I came back to Michigan, I wanted to get into coaching, and I took my first coaching education course, and the literature, the slides, everything was just littered with fun, and I thought, holy moly, this is awesome. USA Hockey is really one of the leading NGBs in kind of adopting how important creating this fun experience for kids were. But what I noticed leaving there was that if I hadn't spent the last 6 years researching what makes playing sports fun, I would have left with, all right, I know that I'm supposed to make it fun. I know that it's important, but how do I actually do it? And I would have been left to, kind of my own devices to try to figure out how to create that experience for my kids. So yeah, I see that you have that slide up there. It's a core component of motivation. And this is, we can talk about it from a kid standpoint, but this is kind of generally speaking, this continuum we talk about it's from the self-determination theory, where we look at what's driving behavior. On the very far left is, what, you're just not motivated to even start participating. I'm just not doing it. And then we start to see on the left side of that continuum, those are our external sources of motivation. So for those of you who chose money was a driver, was your number one reason why you participated, that's totally fine. That is absolutely something that will motivate people's behavior. But what we know from the science and the research is that if that was taken away and that's your number one driver, you're probably not going to continue officiating. So if you're only officiating for the money and they take the money away, then that behavior typically is going to cease as well. And so when we look at, sports and why kids play sports, if it's, I'm playing because my parents said that I have to, well, if you notice, that's on the left side of that continuum. And as soon as your parents stop telling you that you have to, you're probably going to stop playing. So for us in our positions, we're really looking to try to shift that motivation towards the right, to more internal sources. And so from both the kids' perspective, and I know we can tie this in later to the officiating perspective, the more you are motivated by internal sources, the more that drive to participate or to keep coming back to the rink is driven by your wants or your desires. The more fun we can make it, the more likely we're going to keep people coming back to both playing sports, officiating, coaching. Kind of runs the gamut.
Yeah, and for us as officials, and USA Hockey is really focused on not only recruitment but retention. And one of the biggest challenges USA Hockey has had over the last 15, 20 years is we lose 50% of our newer officials, and our first year officials don't come back. And like we talked about, well, the money's really good, and it might be good for my 14 or 15-year-old son. But if he's not having fun, he's going to find another way to make for that sort of money. And so making it fun is really one of the focuses of the entire organization from an officiating standpoint in terms of benefiting retention. And it's no different than the players, right? If we've got U8, U10, U12 players, if they're not having fun, they're going to go find something else to do, because mom and dad might be making them do something, but that something doesn't have to be hockey, right, Heather?
Exactly.
So with that, let's do something here on the bottom of all of your screens, and you'll notice, for those of you who are joining us today, there's a Q&A button and then there's a chat button, and we're going to utilize the chat button right now. And what I want you guys to do, just let's do a little bit of a get a feel for the audience here. Type in the chat the one thing that makes officiating fun for you. So as a group, individually, type in the chat some things that make officiating fun for you. What is it? Is it, we asked the question earlier, camaraderie, serving the game, individual challenge. Is it fun working the big game? Is it fun working, working with your best friend or meeting new people? Or is it fun making money? Let's see. I'd invite all of you to throw some things up there. So, Ann says the challenge to do my best. Matt says I like hockey. Leah says seeing younger kids learn. Ann says watching the kids smile and zoom around with adults. It's the interaction and progress. Colin says I get to understand the game better from a different viewpoint. Matt also says, hey, it's a great side hustle. You're right. That's true. Edward says seeing the game from a different point of view. Another one says participating in the game. So, Heather, when you see some of these answers, these are what our group right now, some of what our members, that are watching are saying, making it fun. Bill from Indiana hasn't responded yet, but that's okay. Bill, we know you're working on typing at the moment too, but
he's not very technologically savvy, that guy.
No, not at all. And look, one of our Mike Menino is probably our number one viewer. He's here every week. Mike, thanks for being here and participating. Thanks for being an official. He's chimed in as well. What are some of these responses? What resonates with you, Heather, when you see some of this stuff?
To be honest with you, I get so excited whenever we do this. I think one of the powerful things about the research that we did was that we created, we used a methodology that really brainstormed the thoughts of players, parents, and coaches. And so we got all of their, when they brainstormed, they basically answered that exact same question, but it was sports instead of officiating. So one thing that makes playing sports fun, brainstorm everything. And that's how we built this, this entire study. And so again, the way that Amanda structured this study was really a grassroots approach to operationally defining this concept. And so when a lot of times with research, what happens is they will take a well-established theory and it's kind of top down. So they say, all right, well, we're going to test these hypotheses on this situation and we're going to see what happens. But in this study, it was really a bottom-up approach. So we asked the players, parents, and coaches, and then we just kind of sifted through their answers. And what we found were very similar answers to what just showed up in the chat. And I think that's one of the parts that is so exciting about this, is you just kind of get this confirmation of, holy moly, it really is, kind of, it does transcend different avenues and different areas of the sport. And it really comes down to, you see things like being challenged. I love the, watching players learn and grow in the game. So that's that value. When you think back to what's motivating people, like if you value watching kids getting better or helping them learn more about the game, but then from a personal standpoint of, being challenged to do my best, growing and just being able to, see the game from a different area. These are all things that help, that we would consider kind of learning and improving. So that's that growth that happens with any type of new challenge. And so I think that a lot of the things that you all identified here, the kids identified almost the exact same things when it came to what created a fun sport experience for them.
As I know you've said to me in the past, and other people maybe from the coaching side of things have said, officials aren't a whole lot different than our players. Officials aren't a whole lot different. The same reasons what makes officiating fun isn't necessarily a whole lot different than what makes playing fun, right? And one of the second question in our poll, and I'm not going to throw up a slide, but there's some misconceptions out there too, right? There's some misconceptions that fun is synonymous with goofing off. that you're only having fun if you're acting like a class clown or whatnot. And you know, and that you can't have fun and develop at the same time, right? Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is one of the most common misconceptions. And this is something that, we joke about in elite sports, but it really comes down to any sort of elite pathway. We always kind of joke that it's sometimes in elite sports, fun is that dirty little F word that people, they don't want to say, or if you say it, you get the side eyes of you're not here to have fun. We're here to work. This is serious. But the fact of the matter is in order to, again, keep coming back to keep coming to, the games that start at, 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning, or, the training that has to go in order to continue to challenge yourself, to continue to get better, to continue to learn and improve. If you don't have fun during that process, then it becomes something less of something that you want to do or something that you value. And it starts to become more of that, I have to do it, or I should do it. And again, once we start to get to those external sources of motivation, as soon as the external motivator is taken away, that behavior typically ceases. And so if we make development not fun, kids are not going to develop. If we make, officiating not fun, officials are not going to stay in the game long enough to actually develop and become quality officials. It's the same thing with players. And you mentioned, it's not that different from players to officiating. It really isn't. It's human behavior. And how humans are motivated we're way more similar than we are different. So that's I think a very big takeaway from the studies that we did.
No, and you're right. And you talk about fun being kind of a dirty little word or whatnot when you get to the highest levels.
Yeah.
I can tell you from personal experience, sometimes it's perceived as officials. I think we know this once in a while. I have officials now. There are times when you have to be careful when you smile at higher levels, because everybody's focused, and certainly as some of the officials that may work for me at the higher level say that. But I'll never forget, as a personal anecdote, kind of smiling and laughing. I was fortunate enough to work at the highest level, and being on the ice in the NHL and smiling and laughing at a coach one time, and a coach said, "What are you doing? This is serious stuff." And I said, "Yeah, this is serious stuff. There's 20,000 people here. It's the greatest place in the world, and I'm having a good time." And that coach looked at me and goes, "Yeah, it's a fair point." And because it is fun, and athletes at no matter what level, it may be a job at the highest level, it may be serious business at the collegiate level, but they're still going to have fun, right? And they want to learn. And one of our another one of our great officiating individuals who's been to multiple AOS, advanced officiating symposiums, Helmet, he said, fun is working on getting better and becoming better, right? And Helmet, that's true. That's development, and that's the personal challenge of getting better, right? And that's no different than players either, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
And so, when you were doing your study and you kind of talk about fun determinants, let's look at the top 20 fun determinants. What kind of stands out here in this list?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things that we were pretty taken back by was just how high and how important kids rated trying your best and working hard. We always joke about how, when I talk to coaches, is that when they rated how important they thought these fun determinants were for their kids, they rated trying hard, down at 6th, I think, and kids were saying, no, it's actually the most important to fun. And what we realized was that, coaches can yell at their kids, scream at their kids, chase them around the ice, banging their stick, just trying to get them to give you effort. And so that's why sometimes coaches think, like, there's no way that my kids would say trying hard is the most important to fun. I can't get them to try hard if my life depended on it. But what we know is that kids want to try hard, and it's all about the experience and the environment that we create for them. And so are we creating an environment that is fun, that is engaging, that is competitive? We know all of these things are what define that 3-letter word for kids. And so if they're saying, trying hard or trying your best and working hard are, the top 2 most important fun determinants, then for coaches, it's okay, how do we create an environment that allows them to try their best, that allows them to work hard, that allows them to compete? It's the same thing for officials as well. It's what does the environment look like, and have we created an environment that allows them to experience all of these things in a relatively psychologically safe space, right? That's probably the most challenging part for officials, that, for players, coaches are in charge of creating that, that safe space in practice, both physically and psychologically. We know officials don't necessarily get that practice time, and so their practice is in a much higher emotional stakes, and maybe not necessarily as psychologically safe, which is probably, we can get to that a little bit later about the role of mentors. But really what we found was that a lot of these, there's one that's that's outcome oriented, and that one is winning. But all of the other things are really focused on the process and the experience up until that point.
Yeah, and you talk about, and actually I'm going to go back here, and we're going to talk a little bit about, what's not fun as an official and all of that. But I also see, number 8 on your list for top 20 fun determinants is when a coach treats a player with respect. That's when you talk about, and there's actually 40, because if we'll, on the next page, we go all the way down to 40. So that's pretty high up on the list. That's in the top 25% is, when a coach treats a player with respect. And I know on the coaching side of things, and I'll just have you speak to this real quick, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but
good luck with me as a co-host. I'm surprised we stayed on track this much.
Oh, you're doing fantastic. So, coaches treating officials with respect is an important thing for our officials to have fun.
Yeah.
Real quick, what are we doing on the coaching side to help them understand who officials are, how challenging it might be as an official to try and increase that respect level?
Yeah, and as many on this call likely already know, that we have the officiating task force out of the national office, and combined national office volunteer. It's an initiative that's coming, that's a very important one for the national office, for USA Hockey as a whole. And one of the things in our coaching education, and this is kind of when I was named to be the manager of education, this was kind of the what they expected my role to develop into, is sort of bridging the gap between coaching education and officiating education. And what we know from the loss of officials is, yes, that there are a lot of things that go into why we're losing officials, but one thing that we have control of on the coaching education side is educating coaches a little bit more on, really just trying to humanize the other side. And so our USA Hockey Updates section in our coaching curriculum is delivered to all our level 1 to level 4 coaches. So this year, it's just under 30,000 coaches that got this segment. And this segment is really designed to discuss what all goes into officiating, the challenges that officials face. We do some videos of, a call that we have 2 perspectives. So it's, you make the call, throw it in the chat. What do you think? And then we have a different angle that's slowed down, and you see that it wasn't the call, the right call at all that anybody thought it was initially was. And it allows us to create a space where we can have a discussion behind, what do you think why do you think we're doing this on the coaching education side? And we actually have them, we took 10 questions that directly from your officiating tests. And I think we have data on about 21,000 coaches that took this, 10 question quiz to see, how well they did on these 10 questions. And then we actually throw 3 of them up in polls within our coaching curricula or in our clinics. And it's anonymous. And so we can quickly gauge and say, oh, it looks like about 33% of you got this one right. All right, moving on to the next one. Whoop, all right, about 47% got this one right. And it's just a way to, again, create a space where we can have a conversation of maybe we don't know all of the rules as well as we think we do. Maybe before we yell at an official, we should stop and think, okay, am I as sure about this, argument that I have? We talk about what's your goal in asking a question of an official, and really how to communicate. And so we go into a section on body language. So, is the difference between foot on the dasher, finger in the face, talking from above versus hopping down off of the bench, having an open body language and having a more of a conversational approach, face to face or eye to eye. So just simple things of how to communicate with officials. Again, empathizing and humanizing the other side. And our goal, as we continue to move forward, is to also have this on the officiating side, because it takes, a respect on both ends, for both parties to be able to impact. And let's face it, we're the adults in the room, and we're the ones that are impacting the players' experience. And this is youth sports. It should be about the kids. So how do we do that and continue to do that?
No, for sure. And the reason I wanted you to speak to that for a second is I think it is as an organization, we're working really hard to increase the respect level, not only from coaches towards officials, but also officials towards coaches as well, because ultimately we're all in this together. And retention of officials is not just an officiating program issue. That's an organizational issue within the whole game, and that's part of it. And so took us on a little bit of a tangent, but I thought that was important. I want to go back to your list here for a second. Just real quick, let's look at way down the list here, right? So out of the top 40 fun determinants is a referee who makes consistent calls, and number 40 is winning. And so, to me, when I first saw these numbers, I kind of fell off my chair. And I mean, are you sure? Like, for real? Because it sure doesn't seem that way to me, Heather.
Yes.
At times.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And, it's one of those, there's actually a cognitive bias that we have where if we hear people talk about things over and over again. So if you're, a parent and you hear a kid that says, I need this new stick. I want this new stick. I have to have this new stick. You automatically place importance on that stick, that this stick must mean a lot to this kid because they won't stop talking about it. So we automatically kind of cognitively put a more importance on something that is continuously talked about. And so officiating, when it comes to, everything that's going on, is being talked about a lot, and winning obviously is the, for parents and for coaches, winning is probably the quickest and easiest way to assess a return on investment of their experience. Are they winning? Are they losing? Have they won all of their games? Oh, they must be, that team is really good. The kids must be having a great time, and there must be a whole lot of development that's happening. We know that's not necessarily the case, especially when it's a win at all cost type mentality. So same thing with the officials. And actually, I looked this up right before we came on. And we did these on a 1 to 5 scale. So not important at all to extremely important. So 1 is not that important. 5 is extremely important. And a ref who makes consistent calls, even though it's ranked as 33rd, it was rated at 4.02. So it actually still is pretty relatively high in importance for the kids' fun experience. And I think that does say something that, again, as coaches, as the adults, they have the greatest influence over the experience of the kids long term. So they control the environment, they create the environment in practice, and then their behavior directly impacts the kids' experience in a game. On the official side, their behavior directly impacts the player's experience on the officiating side. So that is, when we look at all of these fun determinants, it was really kind of great to see how much the process plays into this whole experience and environment that we create for our kids. Winning really is one of the only outcome oriented determinants, which is kind of great from a development standpoint, because that's one thing that we actually can't control. We can't control as players, whether, you know, a ref sees something or an official misses a call. We can't control that. Just like we can't control whether or not we win the game. All we can control is our play and our development along the way. So there's so many things that we can control the process. If we focus on that, the outcomes typically happen. So it really comes down to where are we placing our focus to create that fun experience for both players and officials. It kind of crosses sectors.
No, awesome. No, that's fantastic. So now let's dive in on the back half of this and talk officiating specifically. So we've asked you guys all out in the audience what makes officiating fun. Now in the chat, I want to know what makes officiating not fun. So type in the chat what makes officiating not fun. Because certainly it's not all roses and smiles and pats on the back. There are times when we all walk off the ice and we say, boy, that just, I would have rather gone to the dentist today. And so, you know, let's hear what you have to say. So, you know, angry parents and players, that's not fun. Verbally abuses players and parents, right? Delayed starts, jerks on the ice, making mistakes, even if no one catches it. So, and you can have that's a good one. We're going to come back to that. Coaches that are relentless. Getting yelled at by parents. Yeah, that's the reality is that isn't a whole lot of fun. Here's a good one. Lazy partners. Okay. More abuse from the crowd and from the players and whatnot. So those are some really good some really good answers. Here's another really good one. And I want to come back to this. Off nights when my confidence is low and you know, and that's not a lot of fun some nights. And I think as officials, we deal with that. We're no different than players. Confidence is something that when you've got a lot of confidence, we had a great official, Dennis LaRue, used to always say, trust what you see. And sometimes when you don't have a lot of confidence, you can't trust what you see. And I know I've lived that as well as almost everybody else watching this. So with that, you know, let's talk about mistakes, Heather. When we make mistakes, you know, when we make mistakes, sometimes that's not fun, right? Players make mistakes, coaches make mistakes. Sometimes we make mistakes and nobody else knows it. Mm-hmm. You know, what do you say to somebody and how do we turn that into saying, okay, you know, we acknowledge that can be not fun sometimes, but how do we turn it around and maybe make it a little bit more fun? What are your thoughts? I know I have a few, but you're the guest.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is with any type of development, failure is a part of the process, but failure sucks. We don't like to fail. Nobody likes to fail. It doesn't feel good. It's not something that you're proud of. And so it's interesting that, and I like the way that was put, was making mistakes, even if nobody caught it. You know, that's somebody that holds themselves to a high standard. And those are the people that typically, hopefully, as long as you have that mindset of, all right, I fail and I learn, I fail and I learn, I fail and I learn. No failure is a bad failure unless you didn't learn anything from it. And so when it comes to that development, if you can reframe that mistake of, okay, well, what could I have done differently? What am I going to do differently next time? And kind of have that plan of attack in your mind. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me. It's no fun, but man, it's a critical part of that development process.
No, for sure. And Helmut brings up something here really, really good. And it's, you know, making mistakes is a learning experience. And that's easy to say, right? I mean, the reality is, yeah, it's great. I just got chased out of the rink by a bunch of crazy parents because I made a mistake. But I'm going to be, gosh darn it, I'm going to be better for it. Sometimes it's not fun, but I think, you know, Helmut brings up a good point that if we can psychologically say, I'm going to do a little bit of self-evaluation. How did I make a mistake? Nobody's going to be perfect. I used to have a boss that used to say, officiating is the one thing where you start the game perfect and you go downhill from there. And that's the truth. Nobody's ever had a perfect game. And you have to go into the mindset of, what was one of the things, number one, I think on the list was try as hard as you can. Right. So if I had any advice to any of you out there watching, hustle overcomes certain mistakes. So we're all going to make mistakes, but if you're out there working as hard as you can, that gets recognized by people, and maybe that makes it a little more fun. There aren't any great answers. And you know what? The reality is also that, guess what? I even had this slide ready to go, because I'm not exactly shocked, but that you guys said this. You know what? Getting yelled at isn't fun either. And that's a really hard thing. And I'm going to start with this in terms of, it's easy to say, don't put up with the abuse, right? It's easy to say, you don't have to take it, and zero tolerance is a thing. And we've got your back and all of that. I even hosted a Zoom cast on zero tolerance, but players talk about being treated with respect is what makes the environment fun. What I can tell you is, it's okay to go up to a coach and say, Coach, this has to stop now. And if it doesn't stop, you're going to be penalized. That's okay. You can draw those lines. And if you draw those lines, and sometimes it's okay to own a mistake and say, look, I made a mistake. Heather, I know you coach a team. And if an official comes up and says, I made a mistake, I'm going to be better next time, or I'm going to keep working hard, that has some resonance, right? That matters a little bit.
And that actually is something that comes up in our coaching clinics, and has often, is that when that has happened, that's something that, again, consistently coaches bring up as a situation of, you know what, I was so upset. They came up though and said, look, I made a mistake. That one's on me. Sorry about that. And, I actually just had a coach talk about how, some of the adult officials that he's had have never said that, but he had an 11-year-old official come up and say it to him once. And it was the most respect he's ever had for an official, he said, was when that 11-year-old came up and said, you know what, I missed that call. I'm sorry, that one was on me. And I just found that as actually, it was a pretty impactful statement to hear an official say that, and especially about a kid. I was kind of proud to hear that happened.
No, for sure. For sure. So when we talk about some of the things that make officiating not fun, some of the things that make it hard and make it not enjoyable, you know what's a good solution? And we hammer this, we do Zoom casts on this, we talk about it in our seminars, but when I say let's talk about mentoring, what does that mean to you, and how do you think that helps with the fun factor in making what can be at times a challenging job a little bit more fun?
Yeah, and so if we think about it this way, is that nobody likes doing things that they're not good at. And for us to expect, the more that I get to hang out with this group of people, the more I respect what you guys have to do, and especially getting started. The level of experience, and I know that oftentimes it's typically a new official is coming with some sort of playing experience or hockey background, but the fact is they have to learn a lot of rules and in a short period of time, and they don't get practice. And I think that's one of the biggest things is not having that ability in that space to practice those skills. I know you and I had a quick conversation today and about how, from a player development standpoint, which is where my background is that's something that we know that it takes time, it takes hours, it takes reps, and it takes this, ability to kind of go through this learning cycle, if you will, and helping, or kind of being helped through that process, helps players learn. But again, as officials, you don't have that time and space. And so having that mentorship, I think, for young officials allows for a little bit of a shield, to kind of create that safe space to let them make calls, let them start to get comfortable and confident with the process, let them, start to get comfortable and confident with communicating with adults, or with coaches in general. I think that, having somebody there to help along with that process, I think is a critical component to keeping kids in, those young officials in the game as long as possible.
And when you talk about that, a mentor is somebody to talk to, a mentor is somebody to help get through those challenges. What I would say to all of you in the audience, and to those of you that are watching this at home, and when this is archived, you know what? USA Hockey is working really hard to develop more and more mentor programs. A lot of local associations have one. I heard from a young official today in Exeter, New Hampshire, where they're starting a buddy system to help young officials. But and this young man is 16 years old. He's going to school in Exeter, New Hampshire. He said he's a mentor to a 73-year-old first-year official. Okay. And that just puts a smile on my face. And I think all of you out there, and certainly we all like getting pats on the back. We all like being told we did a great job at whatever it is, right? You did a great job, Scott, cutting the lawn. It looks fantastic. Well, I feel better after I hear that than if nobody tells me the lawn looks good. And it's no different with officiating, but sometimes that doesn't come. So what I would encourage all of you is, when you struggle, find a mentor. And if your local association doesn't have a strong mentor program, or you've been around a while, I'm going to ask you right now, are you a mentor to other people? Are you helping other people? Because you don't have to be a National Hockey League referee or a top level high school referee to be a mentor. You can be somebody that's just honestly a proverbial shoulder to cry on, right? Somebody to talk to, because mentors are going to help officials that are having hard times, even if it's just able to talk about that situation, right, Heather? I mean, just being able to pick up the phone, if people still do that, and have that conversation.
Yeah, and I just to kind of piggyback off of that, because there is, from a learning perspective, there actually is obviously there's a theory out there, but it's called Kolb's cycle of learning. And that's one of the things that we know that people have to do. They have to do something. They have to have an experience in order for them to actually learn. You can watch all of the video in the world, you can read all of the books, but until you're actually out there on the ice and developing the awareness of what's around you, the ability to watch the play, but watch what's happening off the play, be able to get out of the way and still make a call. There's so many things that go into this experience that the only way that people will actually learn and develop is by going through the experience. But what's the most important when it comes to learning is what happens after the experience. And so having the ability to analyze and reflect. And so I think somebody in the chat talked about how they go over their games and they get into the locker room. And so whether that is having a conversation with a mentor, having a conversation with your partner, watching yourself on video, having that, if you're analyzing and reflecting what just happened, that starts to solidify the experience that you just had. And then it really comes down to making a connection with a previous experience. Okay, I made a mistake here, but I had success in this situation. What made me successful in this situation? So making that connection to how can I be successful next time, and then applying what you've learned through that reflection process. And so it's doing, reflecting, connecting, doing, reflecting, connecting. And I think that's one of the things that the mentorship helps the most with, is helping people on the ice connect their experience with a past experience or a future experience or a better way of approaching the situation if they encounter it the next time. So that, I think, from a mentorship standpoint, it's really just asking questions and guiding the official that went through that experience, through that reflection process. And now all of a sudden they have the experience, and then they've been able to self-reflect on it. So that is those are the two more critical parts of learning overall, any type of development. So
And yeah, I mean, you talk about learning and all of that stuff. And the other part, in addition, not only can a mentor help with those things, a mentor may be able to be on the ice with that official, may be able to go watch an official work a game. Getting coaching as an official is something that's that feedback, that's that helping to develop and learn. And you may be sitting out there in the audience, whether it's Mike or Helmet or somebody else, you may be sitting out there, Kevin may say, you know what, I've been working for 5 years and nobody's ever come watch me work. Nobody's ever come to be my coach and help me improve. And what I want to say to all of you, and then also real quick, as we come up here towards the top of the hour, if you have any specific questions for Heather or myself, feel free to throw them up there in the chat or the Q&A button or the Q&A document there, and we'd be glad to answer them. But what I'll say to all of you out there is, look, if you want to mentor and you don't have one, or you need somebody to come out and watch your work, ask. Like, there are a lot of dedicated volunteers in your local areas that would be hopefully willing to help you. And I'm confident they'd be willing to help you. They may not know. And if you reach out to your local referee in chief or your local assigner and say, you know what, is there somebody you can hook me up with to help me through some of these things? I really enjoy officiating, but I want to learn a little bit more. That local referee in chief or assigner should help you with that. Same thing with getting somebody out there, and sometimes asking for help. They may not know you're looking for that sort of feedback. And without knowing that, they can't provide it. And then what I'll say to every single one of you out there is, if you run into some brick walls that way, reach out to me. Reach out to BJ, to Matt in the national office. We will do what we can to help you get that. And yes, getting mentors can be challenging at times, and it doesn't have to be one individual, but it's also maybe, you know what, we sent out an email from the national office looking for mentors on a national level. Maybe if you're living in New Jersey, we can hook you up with somebody in Ohio or in Michigan that's willing to at least talk to you on the phone and help and be that support system. And I think it's important, because making officiating fun is going to help with all of this stuff. So, as we begin to wind this session down, Heather, any thoughts or anything? I just got a question, and it sounds like this might be from a parent, but what's the one thing I can do to help my child have more fun in officiating? Some nights they come home and they just haven't had a whole lot of fun. Yeah. What's the advice you might give that parent?
I think, to be honest, asking questions. I believe that, asking, all right, well, and this is going to sound a little cheesy, but we call it, it's a reflection group of questions, and the acronym is GRIP. And when we ask, somebody, well, what was your goal going into that game? What did you want to accomplish? And I think for young officials, having something tangible, something that they can focus on, specifically that they're working on for themselves, right? Now that gives them a goal. It's a game within the game. So they're trying to work on themselves, and then asking questions. All right, what do you think went well? What did you do to help achieve that goal? Okay, what do you think you could do better next time? Okay, so you didn't handle that one, maybe the coach asked you a question, or was a little bit more aggressive than you wanted, and you didn't handle it the way that you wanted to. So next time, what do you think that you can do to maybe make that experience a little bit more successful? And just kind of, I think, helping them through the problem solving process of what is it that made it a bad experience? Okay, well, what can we do next time to make that a better experience? Is it within your control? If it's not, okay, what can we do to kind of brush it off or not let it affect your experience, or the way, the amount of the fun and enjoyment that you were able to get out of that game? So I think maybe just helping them navigate that post-game reflection of, all right, well, why are we doing it? And kind of come back to the value system. Is it something that you want to do? Is it something that you have to do? What are we doing this for? And maybe kind of bringing them back to the reasoning why they do it in the first place.
No, that's perfect. Here's another question that just came in. One of our participants wants to know, will the study be continued, repeated, or possibly expanded? Looking for more work for you.
Yeah, gosh, I know that Amanda would absolutely love that. That is, unfortunately, funding is a roadblock that we consistently run into. So if you know anybody that has a little extra cash looking to throw at a study, she would, I think she would be interested in that. But yes, and even little ways. So working with a couple of coaches in different associations, they asked, can I take, so this is, the studies are, they're published, they're public. So anybody, if you Google Amanda Visick fund maps, the studies will show up because it was a government funded grant. So all of the findings have to be public. And so there were 81 specific actions and behaviors that went into creating that experience, that fun experience for kids in sports. And so I've had coaches ask, can I take those and ask my kids how important they are to them? There's nothing stopping you. So there may not be right now the formal study that's being done is over in Sweden, and I'm super excited to hear what the findings of that will be. But moving forward, if that's something that informally you want to utilize that data to ask your kids, how important are these things to you? And then the flip side of that is, if you can ask them how important these things are, and then you ask, well, how frequently are they happening? Then you can start to look at, okay, well, they're saying this is really important, but it's not happening very often. Or they're saying this is not that important to fund, but it's happening a lot. So maybe we can, allocate our resources or focus our attention on the things that they find really important, knowing that almost all of those things up there are synonymous with development. So if you start to incorporate those things that they're saying are really important to fund, that it will help development. I believe on the officiating side as well.
No, for sure. And I just put in Amanda's name and also a link to a YouTube presentation she did that you guys can all see. So
she's an incredible resource. She's got a lot of different interviews on the internet. If you Google her name, you'll find a wealth of knowledge.
No, fantastic. So as we come up on the top of the hour, I want to thank Heather for all her time tonight. This has without a doubt been a lot of fun for myself, and I know for all of you out there watching. Heather, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciated all of your insights and everything you're doing on not only the coaching and player education side, but also the energy and ideas you're bringing to the officiating side. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
That's what we want to hear. And as we get ready to wrap up, just to show you, we are coming into 2023 with our every other week Tuesday night Zoomcasts. On the 17th of January, we are going to bring you an officiating program update. We are going to be having our midwinter meetings coming up here in a week, and there will be some exciting announcements coming out of that. So we would encourage you all to join us for our program update. And then the following 2 episodes are going to be nuts and bolts. We're going back to restraining fouls and then physical fouls. So we're gonna get down to talking about hooking, holding, charging, elbowing, and all of that good fun stuff as well, because calling those penalties correctly is also fun. So thank you so much. We appreciate all of you joining us tonight. We wish you all the best in 2023 to you, your families, your pets, and everybody else. And
gotta come and join.
That's right. Well, that's perfect. So wish you all the best. Happy 2023, and we'll look forward to seeing you on a future USA Hockey Officiating Zoomcast.